Genesis chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. It's the first time that the word Shabbat, or its root, occurs in Scripture. I'm going to read the passage. 2, 1 to 3. And heaven and earth in all their array were finished, and on the seventh day God finished his work that he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work that he had done. And God blessed the seventh day, and he sanctified it, because on it he rested from all his work of creating that there was to do. Let's give a short version of this. A short version of this is basically the father and the head of a household steps into the house that he constructed and makes it into a home. That's the short version of understanding these passages. And the explanation of these passages, so that you can understand them better, the heavens and the earth are described as being brought into the state of being prepared or crafted. This is like there's a mini goal to get to that the act of creating was supposed to accomplish. That when we hear the word in all their hosts or in all their array, okay, that noun, it references the heavenly bodies and their established ordering rhythmic movements, think circles, this kind of thing. What I want is for people to read this state of preparedness that I'm saying as describing both the heavens and earth as kind of the following. The heavens and earth were brought to the state of functioning and ready to go. It's about getting everything arranged for an event or for action. But for what event? For what action? What is that? What is it? Verse 2 tells us that God resting is the final action necessary for creation to go from a house to a home. So God has to rest in order for creation to go from a house to a home. Resting, and just so it's easier in English, resting like, okay, here's my hand, it's all ready to go. There's the marker, and now the marker is resting in my hand, right? It's kind of exciting. Think about the idea, okay, now he has this functioning complex house in order with ordered household members or servants or functionaries ready, and then the king comes to step in to let it begin. But then the question is like, what is the it? Well, it would be like the festivities. It'd be a family. It would be enjoined together and enjoying motion together with him in his right place, him as king. So like Shabbat is enthronement. This is helpful too because verse 3 can be tricky. You may imagine God blessing by speaking and sanctifying by doing separate actions. But because of this preposition key in Hebrew, a way to read it is the very act of resting effected blessing, the state of blessing and the state of being holified or sanctified. Okay, that very act itself accomplished it. In other words, the act of resting was then an instrument to cause these two results, blessing and sanctification. And I think this passage could, and it tells a lot of questions, but here's some good questions. So what does it look like for me to interact with Yahweh on Shabbat? Specifically, if he's a king and head of household, what does it look like for me to interact with him as a king on Shabbat? This touches on a very practical thing, is like most people think the 10 commandments are valid. What does it mean for me to keep the fourth commandment, to keep Shabbat holy, to do something with Shabbat in light of this passage? Because this passage is essentially the origin story of Shabbat. And you get the origin story of Shabbat in different forms throughout the Torah. But this is, in the canon, it's the first time that this occurs, right? How should Shabbat, or our practices on Shabbat is a better way to say it, how should we try to interact with God's enthronement or his locality? Because that seems to be what's happening in Shabbat. He shows up locally. He fills it. He rests there. The idea of resting speaks to locality and geography, not simply an abstract state, you know, where it's not like a computer state or something that he turned on and off. He rested in a place. Should we be touching or making contact with Yahweh in some sense on Shabbat? Is Shabbat special? Is there something special about our interactions with Yahweh on Shabbat? What is the deal with Shabbat? And there's this correlation between heaven and earth in Shabbat. And that's where that phrase holified comes in, or made holy. It seems to be that Shabbat is somehow a time where there's a bridge and everything is bridged, rightly joined. The thing that rightly joins it is Yahweh, enthroned. And then the question would arise is, he blessed the seventh day. Now, that's a strange phrase, because does that mean the other 6 aren't blessed? Well, in some sense, they're not blessed in this way. And so because the array is mentioned, it's about cycles, right? The time, meeting times. A way to read this is this about something taking place every 7 days? Is that how we're supposed to see this? In the thing that takes place, is it a bridge? Is there some kind of joining? And if it is, what do I do? How do I rightly arrange myself? It seems like the sun, the moon, these things are put in their place and they're rightly arranged for this time that's it's on a cycle. And the idea of it being blessed and being holy, it speaks to the movements themselves of the arrays and access. So how do I take advantage of access on Shabbat, and what does that look like? What is the seventh day? Which one is the seventh day? This has been a perennial division and schism between Christians and Jews, and I think that's a good way to say it. This is a schism between Torah observant disciples of the Messiah and Christians who are opposed to the Torah, okay? Mm-hmm. And for historical reasons, Sunday for them is the Sabbath, but then most Christians who say Sunday is the Sabbath don't believe they should keep Sabbath. But they think the other commandments apply. It's a complicated thing. How does that work? How does this work? How is this verse a blueprint for lovers of Yahweh, this God, okay? And in particular, followers of Mashiach. If we do this in a cycle, should we do it weekly, right? Mm-hmm. Because the phrase Shabbat isn't just corresponding to the 7 days. Sometimes it corresponds to Shabbat Shabbaton, like on the Yom Kippur, or the feast day festivals. It's this idea of something is being bridged and joined, and how do we get on the ramp? And do we do that weekly? How does this passage point to Yeshua? He says Shabbat was made for the Son of Man. Now this is he talking about Adam, the Son of Man, Ben Adam, a human? Or is he talking about him, the Son of Man, in Daniel 7:13? That's a weird question. And if Yeshua came to fulfill all of Torah, how or in what way does Yeshua fulfill this part of the Torah? How does Yeshua fulfill the fourth commandment himself as a man? And then too, with actions he's going to take, how does he fulfill this part of the Torah, this passage, our passage, in the future? Should we be doing something with this? Should we be commemorating this? If it is holy, if the fourth commandment applies, what should we be doing to accomplish maintaining or guarding the holiness of Shabbat? Because the fourth commandment technically it doesn't say do Shabbat or make Shabbat. It says guard Shabbat as holy, or keep Shabbat holy. How do we maintain the holiness of Shabbat? Mm-hmm. And these are good questions for people to think about. Blessings.